Ada sat quietly at the edge of her bed, dressed in a simple white gown. There was no music, no flowers, no friends, just silence and shame. Today was her wedding day. Not to the rich businessman she once dreamed of, but to a gate man named Daniel. Her father stood by the door, looking older than ever. Ada, he said softly, I know this is not what you wanted, but Daniel saved our home from being taken. He paid all our debts. This is the only way we can survive. Ada's eyes burned with anger. So I must marry a gate man to repay him? A man who opens gates for a living, but there was no way out. Her father had lost everything, the business, the cars, even the house. Daniel had stepped in quietly, offering help without asking for anything, except marriage. The court wedding was brief. Ada didn't smile. She didn't look at Daniel. He wore a plain shirt and dusty shoes. He said his vows with a calm voice, full of peace. Later that night, Ada moved into his small house behind the estate gate. It was clean but simple, no fans, no air conditioning. Just a small bed and 2 plastic chairs. As she lay down that night, Ada whispered, I'll never love you. Daniel said nothing. He just turned off the light and stared at the ceiling, but what Ada didn't know was, Daniel was not who he seemed to be. Ada woke up the next morning and stared at the low ceiling above her. The room was quiet, too quiet. There was no sound of a generator, no smell of breakfast, no housemaid knocking at the door like in her father's mansion. Instead, she saw Daniel sweeping the compound outside, just like a regular gate man. She rolled her eyes. How did I end up here? When she stepped outside, Daniel greeted her with a warm smile. Good morning. Ada, she didn't answer. She walked past him without a word. In the days that followed, Ada refused to wear her wedding ring. She stayed indoors most of the time, avoiding her friends and old neighbors. She felt ashamed. A woman from a rich background now married to a gate man. People gossiped. Some laughed. She hated it. Daniel, however, remained calm. He cleaned the compound, went to work, cooked dinner, and left food for her every evening, always neatly served, even if she never touched it. One night, Ada finally exploded. I don't love you. I didn't choose this life. She shouted. Daniel looked at her gently. I know, he said, and I'm not forcing you to love me, but I'll still take care of you, even if you hate me. Ada was confused. Why was he so calm? Why didn't he fight back? She began to notice something odd. Daniel had a quiet confidence. He read books on finance at night. He received strange phone calls and stepped out to talk privately. Sometimes, he returned late in fine clothes, smelling of expensive cologne. He was just a gate man, or was he? Ada's heart slowly filled with questions and curiosity. One evening, Ada stood by the window, watching Daniel walk out in a clean white shirt and polished shoes. He looked nothing like a gate man. He answered a phone call, nodded seriously, then entered a black SUV that had just pulled up. A driver was waiting inside. Ada blinked. A driver. She quickly stepped outside but pretended to be stretching. Where are you going? She asked coldly. Just an errand, Daniel said with a smile. I'll be back soon. He got into the SUV and it drove off, leaving Ada staring, in shock. That night, she stayed awake, waiting. Daniel returned around 10 p.m., holding a laptop bag and some documents. She watched him quietly as he placed them on the table and sat down to read. The next morning, she saw something even stranger, a letter on the table, half open. It had a logo on top that read, Crown Tech Holdings. Ada's eyes widened. Crown Tech was one of the biggest companies in the country. The letter was addressed to Mr. Danielez, Executive Director. Her hands shook. Executive Director. She quickly placed the letter back before he noticed. That day, Daniel left for work as usual. But Ada had made up her mind. She would follow him. She wore a scarf and sunglasses, boarded a bike, and told the rider to follow Daniel's route. After 30 minutes, the car entered a massive glass building in the city. The security man at the gate greeted Daniel with respect and saluted. Daniel walked in like he owned the place. Ada's heart raced. She got off the bike and read the building's sign, Crown Tech Headquarters. She stood there, frozen. Her husband, the so-called gate man, worked here. No, something wasn't right. He didn't just work there, he was somebody important. Ada stood across the street, watching the tall glass building where Daniel had entered. Her hands were trembling. She had to know the truth. She crossed over and boldly walked to the front desk. Excuse me, she said to the receptionist. I'm here to see Mr. Danielez. The lady behind the desk smiled warmly. Do you have an appointment? I'm his wife. Ada replied slowly. The receptionist's eyes widened. Oh, you must be Mrs. Ez, please. Follow me, Ada followed, her heels clicking on the shiny floors. She expected a small office, in some corner, but instead, the lady stopped at a large door with a golden nameplate. Danielez, CEO. Crown Tech Holdings. Her mouth dropped open, CEO. The door opened, and there he was, Daniel. Sitting behind a giant desk, dressed in a smart, blue suit. He looked up, surprised. Ada. She stepped in slowly. You're the CEO. Daniel stood up. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? She asked, her voice shaking. Daniel sighed. Because I wanted to know if someone could love me without money after I helped your father. I asked him to let me marry you. Not because I pitied you, but because I had seen your strength. Even if it was hidden under pride. Ada sat down. But you live like a gate man. I needed someone who could see the man, not the money. I've seen too many fake people. I chose to stay low, to find something real. Tears filled Ada's eyes. I judged you. I mocked you. But you were everything I ever wanted. Daniel smiled. It's not too late to begin again. Ada, if you'll have me, the real me. Ada sat across from Daniel in the grand office. Her eyes were still wet, her heart heavy with shame and wonder. Everything she believed had turned upside down. I don't deserve you, she whispered. Daniel walked over, knelt in front of her, and gently held her hands. Maybe not then, but the woman sitting here today is different. Ada broke into quiet tears. I was proud, rude, and blind. Daniel nodded, smiling softly, and now you see, that's what matters. A week later, Daniel surprised Ada again, this time with a gift, a beautiful house in the city and a key with her name engraved in gold. On the key were the words, "Love begins with truth." Ada apologized to her father, her pride now replaced with humility. She also visited Daniel's small compound, the place she once hated, and packed her things with a quiet smile. The past no longer held her. Months passed. Ada and Daniel began to rebuild their marriage, not as strangers, but as partners. She stood by him at company events, proud and supportive. No one laughed anymore. Instead, people admired them. At a gala night, a reporter asked her, "What's the most surprising thing about your love story?" Ada smiled. "I married a gate man, but I found a king." And the room filled with applause.